to Converge. Thank you for being here this evening. My name is Kenny, if you don't know me, and I get a chance to serve as a part of the Mosaic staff team and hang out here with you guys on Thursday night, and I absolutely love that. We are finishing up a series, a short two-part series, it's called Unwrapping Christmas, which kind of just deep diving into kind of some of the thoughts as I evaluate Christmas season and think about kind of as we approach Christmas and maybe the opportunity to, I think Christmas affords us an opportunity to maybe evaluate some elements of our Christianity and our thoughts. So for those of you here last week, we talked about the early church, talked about some of the early Christians in the 2nd and 3rd century and kind of the history of Christmas. We unpacked the history of Christmas, kind of how we got to the idea of Christmas, being that Jesus wasn't born in December. How did we get to this point, and the idea that the early church, some of the early Christians chose to engage with culture in a way that was redemptive. They chose to engage with their culture in a way that really shifted and changed the history of the Roman Empire throughout and affects us today. And I think there's great lessons we can learn as we examine the early church in the 1st century. Tonight I want to kind of do something similar, but I want us to kind of examine our approach. We looked at sort of the early church and some of the 2nd and 3rd century Christians and how they approached Christmas and this time of year, and how there was a great lesson I think that we could learn from that, and that the idea that there's nothing sacred or secular, that something is secular because we choose to allow it to be secular, or something can be sacred if we choose to engage with culture, and we can make things that maybe are normally secular, we can make them sacred. As we examine the approach that maybe we take today, I think there's a great lesson we can learn. I think there's a particular area that we can maybe expose in some of our approach to Christmas today. Before I do that, I kind of want to ask a couple questions. I want you to think about some of your own family Christmas traditions that you grew up with, and maybe what are some of maybe your most favorite Christmas traditions, and kind of as we think about the idea of how we approach Christmas. So what I want to do is take a minute and maybe find a person next to you, someone you know or don't know, and maybe someone, if you do know, maybe something you've never shared with them, or if someone you don't know, share. Just what are some of your favorite family Christmas traditions. Just take about 2 minutes and kind of whatever your favorite thing growing up was, and then we'll kind of talk about, maybe we'll have share with the group if anyone wants to share. So we'll take about 2 minutes to do that. Share with each other your favorite family Christmas traditions. What about you? Make this thing called coquito in my family. It's like a eggnog, Puerto Rican eggnog. It's got a lot of rum in it. Oh my gosh, that was near the camera. I just said something near the camera. I forgot the camera was there.
It wasn't really a tradition. It was something weird that I probably did. But one time right now, the Christmas party, in the chimney, going at it on the chimney, like waking the whole house up. It was like every Christmas.
Only on Tuesday?
No, like that's like one thing. Yeah, really weird. Just wouldn't even wake us up, and now I really miss that.
And that's kind of like, as far as Christian, we would like everything was good. Let me tell you, my dad would come to each room, my sister and I here, but he'd have a blanket and he'd put it over our heads. We'd have to go through a hallway to get to the presents, and he'd bump us into the wall and not on purpose,
That's really funny.
And so, yeah, I just go there, I'm like, why not? Is that good? I think it's like we used to always wake up and they were unwrapped, and so they're just like we got like 4 o'clock in the morning, and like my parents didn't care, just did. But my mom like knew it, so even though we're like grown, we really she'll still like put out
About 20 seconds.
put it out in the morning before we do it. Or it's like from Santa. My brother does that. Santa.
I love getting
Now it's like, oh my God. So when we were younger, we used to sneak down
all 5 of us, and then go back upstairs to go to sleep. And my parents had never knew until like 2 years ago, and they were like, "You guys did that?" We're like, "Yeah, we like had a party at like 5 a.m." You guys didn't know about it at all. It was just kind of oh, I know. I make my parents.
And get them in his closet and expect it to
All right, anyone have any traditions they want to share with the group?
Can I make one up?
Caleb would like to share a family tradition that he has admittedly said that is not true, it is made up. So,
Well, it's gonna be. I'm gonna do it with my family.
oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm gonna choose if I have kids. I'm gonna choose one of my kids every year, and after I finish putting wrapping paper on it, I'm gonna put a ton of tape on it, and then put more wrapping paper over it.
On the kid?
No, on all of the kids' presents.
Oh,
So 2 of the kids, there's 3 kids, open up the presents, and then one kid is sitting there for like hours trying to get tape on.
How are you going to explain it?
okay, we'll make it to the pasteles. So Melanie's family every year makes their Christmas tradition is to, what is it, Melanie? To make a different culture food?
Well, we try to make different kinds of foods. Anyways, every year instead of like traditional Christmas ham or whatever you eat. But one year my mom and my aunt and my grandma, who are very white, tried to make tamales. They were pretty gross.
Anyone have any good Christmas traditions they want to share with the group? Or anyone in your group shared one that maybe they don't want to share, but you want to share on their behalf? Anyone know?
One tradition, my mom, it happened on accident once, and now it happens a little bit every year. But one time, we woke up Christmas morning, and there were presents everywhere. It was like one of those years, I don't know, the economy was good or something. and not many of those memories for me growing up. But one year, it was just presents everywhere. And none of them had names on them. So we were opening presents all day. I mean, from like morning till late at night, because there were a lot of presents, number one. And number two, we'd have to open it, then figure out who it was for. And that would take a while, because my mom, she's not exactly like, my mom's real sweet and real nice, and she's a people person.
Camera's rolling.
Yeah, I know. She might podcast this. She's sweet and she's a people person, but she's not organized and she doesn't have the best like memory. And so she'd be like, my mom would be like, well, you know, I remember getting it on sale, you know, like 6 months ago. But that's another thing is my mom Christmas shops all throughout the year. So now what she does, kind of the tradition that came out of that from that nightmare on Christmas was, so now she just kind of does that with a few presents on purpose, but she remembers it now. But it's kind of a funny thing, like once in a while I'll be like, oh, there's a present with no name on it. Mom, is this from you? Yeah, somebody open it. We normally let a kid open it, and then he has to give it up. So.
That would be sweet.
Yeah, but what does a 9-year-old need a leather wallet from JCPenney for? I mean, what does a 29-year-old
Good. Anyone else?
Food for that.
Good point. Anyone else got any
Podcasting,
good?
Mom, don't give me a wallet.
Does anyone else have my mom gets me socks and underwear every year. Someone was talking about a tradition where, I can't remember who it was, they were saying that a couple days ago that their mom gets everyone, or some of their parents get them pajamas. Who was that we were talking about?
Maybe Chandler or Brandon.
And so they all get PJs. For me, I get underwear and socks every year. Like this, like the thing, like a 31-year-old man still getting underwear from his mama. I don't care. I'm gonna buy it. It's good.
I need it.
I'm good. Like every year, like seriously, it's like I get the same thing from my mom every year. It's like socks, underwear, and then like gift cards to like restaurants. Okay, so yeah, I gotta eat. I gotta wear underwear, so it's good. Works out. Works. I guess I don't have to. Anyway, any other family traditions?
What's wrong with you people? Eat is what he meant.
Yeah, well, I got it. I could fast.
I love it.
How about this? Think about the best gift you've ever gotten and why it's your favorite gift. For me, it was, I'll never forget it. It was 1991. Yes, I was 9 years old. And I actually, for those of you, has anyone here been following or reading through the Mosaic Advent Christmas devotional? Has anyone read through it at all? All right, all 2 of you. It's good. It's good. Glad we spent a lot of time on that. And so we, actually the very first entry is one of my entries I got a chance to write. And I talked about my favorite Christmas present that I've ever gotten in my life. To this day, still my favorite. I had a Hulk Hogan skateboard when I was 9 years old. It was awesome. I had it. It was like it was black, and it was Hulk Hogan. It was picture him doing this. It was just like the red bandana with the yellow tight underwear. Because that's what you do when you're a wrestler. You wear nothing but underwear, Speedos, and so he's doing this. And it's got like a little saying. It's like, eat your vitamins, say your prayers, great American hero. Like, you guys, any other Hulk Hogan fans in the room? All right, like all one of you. Wow, I guess he was a little too young.
All they know is the reality show.
Yeah. Oh,
They're like,
Hey,
no.
Hulk Hogan was like my hero when I was a kid. And so it was my favorite. Does anyone have like a present you're like, that was my favorite present I ever got when I was a kid? Like, or recently? Does anyone have like a present you're like, what was your, like, this was the most awesome present I ever got? Who has one they want to share? Lauren, you got one in the back?
This one was also a bit of a disappointment because I didn't follow through with it. However, when I was in 8th grade, I wanted to be a rock star. And about a month before Christmas, I wasn't actually trying to snoop, I really wasn't. But I happened to find my Christmas gift, and it was a beautiful electric guitar. It was purple, Schecter Diamond Series, gorgeous. I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting a guitar. So excited. And then Christmas comes, and I'm like, okay, the guitar's gonna be here. It was not. It was not anywhere. And I finished opening all my gifts, and I was like, where's my, okay. And I'm like trying not to tell my mom that I saw something, but like trying to also be happy. And then my dad comes out of his room and has it plugged in and starts playing like a Christmas song. And yeah, I was really excited. And then 2 years later, I stopped playing guitar.
Well, what happened? I thought you were going to be a rock star. You can pick it up at any time, Lauren.
It was really bad.
Just don't forget me when you're famous. Sweet. Anyone else had like an awesome present they want to share from a kid? Anyone else? Kayla, you got one?
I got, it was not maybe last year, but the year before. I got this giant jewelry box. It's like 5 feet tall, and it's like, it has a mirror on it too. It's like huge, and I was really excited.
All the girls are like, yeah, that's awesome. The guys are like, really? Wow. You got an awesome mirror. Okay. All right. Okay, how about this one? Have you ever given someone a gift that was like, was awesome and that they loved it? Has that ever happened to you? Like you knew. Sorry, you can be a little prideful right now. We can repent later. It's like if you have like you gave a gift that that was legit. I scored some major points with that person. Raise your hand. Like you ever had that happen? All right. Does anyone like want to share one? I've got one awesome one that I want to share. You want to share one?
Sure. Well, I worked with like the Orlando Predators for a couple of months, and so I got all the Orlando Predators to sign a helmet, and I gave it for my dad for his birthday, which is on New Year's Eve, and it was a pretty awesome gift.
That is pretty good. Predators are an arena football league team. You don't know? What's Predators? What? No, it's not a Disney character. It's a team. Anyway. All right, so I've got one. Anyone else want to share one? Also, I have one that's awesome. All right, okay, here we go. This is no joke. Okay, so my mom is the youngest of 10 children in her family, And so there was a substantial age gap between like the 7th one and like the 8th one, and my mom's the 10th one. And so there's this big, so like her oldest brothers and sisters are like 30 some years old, 30, 40 years older than her. Like way older than she is. And so she had some brothers that were like in their late 30s when she was born, because that would be 30 years older. And so I got past 4th grade math. It was awesome. And so they my mom's dad passed away when she was 3 years old. And so so the older ones were a lot of them were out of the house, and my grandmother was raising just a handful of the younger ones. And so they lived in Puerto Rico. They're from a farm where there's like no electricity, and that's where they're from, in the central part of Puerto Rico. And so my grandmother decided they were going to move to New Jersey. And so, because apparently living in perfect warm weather year round wasn't good, she wanted to go to New Jersey where it's 6 degrees in December and January. And so they moved to New Jersey, and when they got there, they ended up changing their last name, just dropping the S of their last name. I'm not sure the reason fully why they just changed the spelling. And they ended up they ended up living in a part of New Jersey that was different. Long story short, they ended up losing contact. My grandmother and my mom and her older siblings ended up losing contact with their older siblings. And then my grandmother got Alzheimer's disease when my mom was very young. And so my mom was pretty much on her own by the time she was in junior high. And so she ends up being separated. And because they changed the name and spelling, and they lived at a different place, and my grandmother had Alzheimer's, it became like this perfect storm of their inability to reconnect. And so they lost contact, and many, many times my mom had tried to find her siblings, and my siblings had tried to find her. And so my mom basically lost contact with them at some point in the 70s, and it wasn't until she basically figured she'd never talk to her older siblings ever again. Fast forward to November of 2007. One of my aunts, my mom's older sister, was working at a supermarket, and she's working at a register at a supermarket in New Jersey. And so my mom, she's there talking, and she's talking to this guy, and he goes to swipe his debit card or his credit card or whatever, and it wouldn't work. And he's like, I don't know why it's not working. I've got plenty of money in that account. It's my debit card. It should be working. And he's like, yeah, hold on one second. There's no one on the line. So she's like, I'll hold on if you want to. She's like, yeah, let me call my bank. So he calls the bank, and they're like, yeah, we don't know. There's plenty of money in your account. He's like, what's your name? And he says his name. My name is Anthony Carreras, which is Carrera. I'll say it with a little American tongue for my Carreras and Carrera for my Caucasian friends in the room. And so Carrera is a very popular Hispanic name in Puerto Rico. Lots of Carrera families, but Carreras with an S is extremely rare. And so he says his name is Anthony Carreras, and my aunt's thinking, that's really weird. That was our name when we first moved here, and we ended up changing it to Carrera, but it was Carreras, and so that's really weird. What are the chances I could be related to this guy? And so he hangs up the phone. He's like, we have no clue. My bank says that there's money in the account, that it should have gone through. Let's try it again. They try it again, and it works perfectly fine. She goes, I just hope that it was weird that I didn't, but I heard your last name was Carreras, and rather, the S, that's very rare. Where are you from? Oh, my family is from Rincon, and we can talk about the area of Puerto Rico in the western part of the island where he's from. And she's like, wow, my family's from there. Who, do you know any? And they start talking, and they come to find out this guy has just run into his great aunt. And so this guy who's at the register is a cousin of mine, just by what would seem like random chance. And was this your mom? And they, holy cow. And so then through this scenario, my mom ends up getting reconnected with all of her older siblings. And most of them now live in the United States. They live in Connecticut or New Jersey for the most part. If you live in Puerto Rico still. Most of my family now lives in Philadelphia or New Jersey. And so my mom has now, since 2007, spent many holiday seasons with her family that live in Connecticut. And so it was pretty cool to get a chance to reconnect, and I've got a chance to meet a bunch of my older cousins, and so it's kind of a really neat. So that Christmas here, this is a massive big deal in my family. Obviously, having been disconnected for almost 40 years, 30 some odd years, this is a big deal in my family. So this is what I did. I get a hold of all of my older my older cousins and my aunts and uncles that I don't even know, and I have them send me photos of all of our cousins and people that we know. And so I got this. I went to Things Remembered. So, gentlemen, it's a great store. You can get things engraved. Just give you some points there. And so I go to this thing called Things Remembered, and I buy this. It's like a little silver tree. It looks like a big Christmas tree, and it's got the leaves are silver hearts that are like little lockets where you can put photos in there. So you can put like 40 different photos. There's 40 different little lockets about this big or so, silver. There's all these little heart-shaped lockets of different sizes, and you can put pictures on this. So I got a bunch of photos of all of our different family members, and got them to put them inside each one. And so I got it engraved. It says God had us family with an S, because that was the big deal. And so I gave it to my mom for Christmas, and she opens it up, and she starts looking at it, and she starts to realize that it's all her family in this that she had just connected to, like the last 6 weeks before that. She had just met all these people, and she just started just tearing up, and she just starts crying, and just my mom just weeps, and we cry, and it was like, and so my mom still has it up at her house. And it was the greatest Christmas gift that I've ever given anyone. And it was pretty awesome. It was pretty epic. And so that was pretty awesome. So it was a pretty big deal. And I thought to myself, I gave this gift to my mom, and it gave her a memory, something that she's constantly reminding of the story that she has, the story of her life. And kind of many of the pains of her life are tied to the fact that she was disconnected to her family for many years. And this gift I gave her reminds her of the restoration that she had to her family, and she continually has that in her life. And so now my mom approaches Christmas very differently than she did before that. And she has this part. And so, I remember thinking to myself, I gave my mom this gift, and she has remembered it every single year, and it's been a huge part of kind of reconnecting to her family is a big part of my mom's story. One of the coolest parts is my mom is not a believer, does not follow Jesus, and no one in my family that I knew of is followers of Jesus until I reconnected with my family to find out that most of my older uncles are not just followers of Jesus, but most of them were pastors and church planters in Puerto Rico. And that most of my family are people who love Jesus. And so through that, my mom has been, they've been ministered to my mom, and there's this really awesome story that God has been writing. And every time I think about it, I think about the fact that God has been writing a story for us. And many times we approach the Christmas season without really being connected to the story that God is writing. I think many times, obviously many people who don't follow Jesus approach the Christmas season with the wrong perspective. But I think sometimes, even those of us who are followers of Jesus, sometimes we can lose sight of really what the Christmas season really ought to be about. And I think it sounds like a cheesy cliche, but it really is true that Jesus really is the reason for this season. Like, the Christmas season is not about even family. It's not even really about like celebrating the good things that we have. The Christmas season is about the fact that the story could have ended with us being separated from God, but He loves us enough to make it possible for us to be rescued. That He engages with us in such a way that we can be rescued. The Christmas season is about celebrating the fact that God redeems us, and celebrating the fact that God gives us the opportunity to engage with other people in such a way that they can be redeemed. God writes a story for us, and that we get to be a part of the story that God is writing for other people. And I think it's a tragedy that we approach this season without truly thinking every day about the incredible story He's written for us and the opportunity we have to write that story for other people. I don't know about you, but for many years, Christmas was about me. For many years of my life, Christmas was all about me. In fact, Christmas to me was better than my birthday, because I got more presents, I ate more food, I celebrated. Like, to me, Christmas was about me. I'll never forget, there was one year, back in the 1980s, when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were huge. I remember I got a bunch of Ninja Turtle related, like, my parents were really big on this, where like, they would get you like a present that was like everything was like around that present. It's like one year, like, it was all Ninja Turtle stuff. It was like, I got a Ninja Turtle, like, thing, like one year it was like, I got a fish tank. And so, I don't know why they thought it was good to give an 8-year-old a fish tank. Like, this big fish tank. And like, they gave me like multiple presents that were all wrapped separately, but they were all related to the fish tank. And then I went to my aunt's house, and like, my aunt gave me like a present that was related to my fish tank, because they had told her. And then I went to like my grandma's house, and my grandma gave me a gift that related to the fish tank, because they were all, like, every year they did that. One year it was like Ninja Turtles. Like, one year it was like like all of my aunts and uncles, like they gave me something related to Ninja Turtles. The Ninja Turtle year was way better than the fish tank year, I can assure you. And so, like, but I remember like having, like getting 3 or 4 different gifts from different people in my family that were related to Ninja Turtles. And I remember saying something to my dad like, I can't wait to go to my Titi Lali. Titi is Spanish for auntie. And so, stick with me. So I was excited to go to my Titi Lali's house because she would give really good presents. And I knew if anyone was going to give me the best Ninja Turtle present, it was her. And I was excited. To me, Christmas was about me getting what I wanted. It's way better than my birthday. I mean, lots of people forget your birthday. No one forgets Christmas. I mean, it was like, and my mom would use this really for like behavior modification. Like starting like October 1st, pretty much. Like anytime I did something bad, my mom would remind me that Christmas was coming around the corner. And so I behaved really well because I wanted to make sure that I got what I wanted. And I think sometimes we approach God that way. We think God is for us and for our pleasure and that it's about us. And so therefore, we try to behave and eliminate sin from our lives, not because we're remembering the story that God is writing, but because we want to make sure we get what we want. Like, we treat people nice because we think God is watching and checking his list, like God is some big Santa in the sky. And it's almost funny, but I think the Christmas season, when I talk about unwrapping Christmas, I think as we approach this, we evaluate and we examine how we approach the Christmas season. I think it gives us an opportunity to expose maybe our own selfishness in our lives. And I think the way many of us, sometimes, I know I've been guilty of this many times in my life, the way we approach the Christmas season really is a microcosm for how we approach God in our lives. And if we evaluate, just like we did last week, we examined how we engage in the Christmas season, kind of evaluating how we engage with our whole culture in a redemptive manner. The same way, if we really examine how our hearts are focused on the Christmas season, I think it can really expose some of our own selfishness. I know for me, Christmas was all about me. And as Christmas, as I got older, the gifts simply got more sophisticated and got bigger. And with that, my idolatry got bigger. As I got older, my gifts got more intricate and more expensive, and my idolatry became more detrimental to my own life. I became more focused on me as I've gotten older. And I think the Christmas season, I think, exposing that in our American culture. Here's some crazy statistics. According to the National Retail Foundation, the average two-parent family will spend $1,660 on Christmas presents. $1,660, $1,660. And 31% of American households will go into debt to buy presents. How stupid that is. And it's not just an American phenomenon. In the UK, according to The Independent, which is their major newspaper in London, in the UK, the average UK family will spend the equivalent of 1,634 American dollars. So they're about $30 behind us, roughly. And about 25% of British families will go into debt to buy presents. So there's this phenomenon where we are willing to spend thousands of dollars, $1,600 to $1,700 in 1 month on one thing. And we're even willing to go into debt for it. According to the National Retail Foundation, of the families that go into debt, this is unbelievable, 34% of them will be paying it off until May. Like, are you kidding me? A third of the people that go into debt are not just paying it off, not just going into debt, but they're paying it off into May of the next year. Like, what a tragedy. And it's because we treat Christmas about us. It's all about me, so I've got to do this. I got to spend money to give good gifts or get good gifts. We've got to spend money and we've got to do these silly things because it's all about us and our pleasure. And I think sometimes we treat God the same way. Christmas is not the celebration of your birthday. It's not your birthday. It's the day we celebrate the birth of Jesus, not the day we celebrate the birth of Kenny. It's not. But I think sometimes we think it's about us. I know I've done that. And so we treat Christmas like it's our own birthday rather than the birth of Jesus. Really ask yourself this question. Of all the great presents that I've gotten or given, or all the times I've been involved in In Christmas festivities, how often are they focused on my own comfort and my own pleasure? How often are they focused on giving sacrificially? It's because Christ came to earth and he gave sacrificially. He gave in a way that was radical, extreme. God so loved the world that he gave. When was the last time we approached the Christmas season with the same sacrificial attitude that God approached giving his son? And if this is the season in which we are to celebrate what God did, it ought to be on the forefront of our mind every day. I don't know about you. I went through my day today and I was thinking about the Christmas shopping I got to do. I'm thinking about making sure I got my to-do list for Christmas. I don't know about you. I thought about Christmas quite a bit today. And if I'm honest, I probably didn't think a whole lot about the real reason that Christmas exists. I'm just as guilty of it sometimes. The Christmas season is to be a celebration of God's choice to redeem us and a celebration of our opportunity to be a part of the story he's writing in the lives of other people. It's a time that we ought to recalibrate our minds to know that our lives should be all about God and his glory. Why do I allow it so often to be everything except that? So often as we approach the Christmas season, it doesn't reflect the celebration of redemption. Celebration that we're rescued. That we get to be restored. That we get to have friendship with God. That he says, come on, let's make a deal. You follow me, I forgive everything. Then let's make a deal. I'm going to love you and pour out forgiveness in your life. I'm going to redeem you, rescue you, and invite you to come be a part of rescuing other people. Why isn't that at the forefront of our minds? Everything God does is for his own glory. And so at the forefront of our minds, all of the time, we got to be thinking about making God glorified. Making God look good to everyone in our lives. And making the heart of God smile. Like the purpose of our lives is to bring glory and honor and joy to God. To make him smile. To make him happy. To give him pleasure. That's the reason why we exist. But yet so often, our lives are about our own pleasure. And I think the Christmas season exposes that and amplifies that. It's not just at Christmas we're this way all year round. But I think Christmas really brings it to the forefront on how selfish and self-focused we can be. And God says, I love you, and I'm calling you to be focused on something much bigger than yourself. That's me and the people around you. Are you willing to do that? It's a great story from the Old Testament I want to share with you. If you have your Bibles, if you don't have a Bible, there's just be under your table there. 1 Samuel 17. This is a story, if you've been around church for any length of time, this is a story that you are probably familiar with. Story of a guy named David and some guy named Goliath. It's a true story, actually happened. 1 Samuel 17. 1 Samuel chapter 17. And so many of you are probably familiar with the story. If you're not, bottom line is David is the youngest of a bunch of brothers. His brothers are fighting in war. He goes to bring them some food. I don't know, he's bringing them a Big Mac or something while they're fighting in war. Because apparently when you're fighting at the front lines, you need your little brother to bring you food. Apparently that's how they did it back then. And so David is there, and he gets there. There's this tall dude, Goliath. We believe from some what we understand, he's a super tall dude. He's probably 9 or 10 feet tall. He's got like superhuman strength. And he is the leader, one of the leaders of the army of the arch nemesis, the enemy of Israel, this group of people called the Philistines. And Goliath is basically smack talking, he's trash talking, kind of like I do when I'm playing basketball, which I really shouldn't do because I'm not that good. But I trash talk. And so Goliath is trash talking. He's playing. He's out. He's kind of like he's playing ball, but it's war. And so he's out there trash talking to Jews, and he's trash talking to David's older brothers. And David's like, "Who is this punk who's trash talking the people of God? Like Israel, we're God's people. Like God's on our side. We follow the one true God. The Philistines, they follow the fake gods. Like, why the heck does this guy think he has the right to talk to us like this? And why are you guys taking it? Why are you guys being a bunch of punks? That's my paraphrase for what he said. That's the KSV, that's the Kenny Standard Version. Anyway, so 1 Samuel 17:45 says this. And David said to the Philistine, talking to Goliath, you will come against me with the sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Verse 46, this day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. Talk about some trash talk. Hey, you're a punk, I'm going to cut off your head. I've never said that playing basketball. Never. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. He's like, hey, hey Goliath, I'm gonna take you out today. I'm gonna cut off your head, and I'm gonna feed you to animals. And this is why I'm gonna do it. So that the whole world will know there is a God in Israel. I mean, we teach the story of David and Goliath in our Sunday school classes, like back in the day with the flanagraphs. And so, we teach in our churches, we teach David and Goliath, and we say things like, the moral of the story is that anyone can, if they put their mind to it, can do great things, or great things come in small packages, or you can take out the giants in your life if you just try. I mean, there's all kinds of lessons that we extrapolate from this story. And some of those things are true. However, there's a much grander, transcendent truth that this narrative tells us. God allows this to happen. God sovereignly orchestrates the events of David's life. God orchestrates his life for this moment to take place for one very clear purpose that's way greater than all the others. So that all the world will know there is a God in Israel. God did this not for David's benefit. God did this not for Israel's benefit. God did this so that all the world will know that there is a God in Israel. And I think sometimes we think we're the David, like we're going to take out the Goliath is like the metaphor for the devil or some obstacle in your life, and we're David and we're taking things out. No. You're not the David. You're the scared Israelite, still scared of the enemy. David is the metaphor for Christ. We're not the David taking out the obstacle. No. I'm over here scared, shivering. Christ comes in and he rescues us from the obstacles we face for a very clear purpose. Not so that you can have your best life now. Not so that you can have a good life and you can enjoy things. Your life is not about you. And God's rescue of you isn't about you either. It's about his own glory. God is consumed with people knowing how awesome he is, and God is consumed with being famous in all the nations of the earth. And so God does awesome things in our lives because he's writing a story. And he's doing this to rescue us so that all the world will know who he is. So God is doing awesome things in Jared's life so that all the world will know there's a God in Jared. God is doing awesome things in Brandon's life and in Jessica's life and in Mosaic's church and in Converge. Not because so that you can have a good life. No. It's so that all the world will know there is a God in Converge and in Jessica and in Brandon and in Mosaic. God does things in my life not so that I can enjoy it and have a good life. No. God is doing things in my life for one singular purpose. So that all the world will know there's a God in Kenny. And he's the one true God. And that they should follow him. That's it. And I think this dramatically changes our perspective in life. I think as we approach the Christmas season, and if we think Christmas is about us, we become very selfish. And if we don't get what we want, we get angry. And I think that exposes, it's a microcosm of our lives. It exposes how we function. If we think God is about us, when we don't get what we want, we get mad at God. Or when things bad happen to us, we get mad at God. If we think God is in my life so that I can have a good life, what begins to happen is, what happens when bad things happen? Or when trouble comes your way? When you face an obstacle? Well, then God's not real? Or God's not really there? Or I thought God was for me. Yeah, God's for you, but not the way you might think necessarily. I know I've been guilty of this. But if you understand that it's all about His glory, about Him being famous, and Him being pleased, that no matter what I face, I can make Him famous in spite of my obstacles. And then sometimes I can even make Him more famous because of the obstacles I face. I can make Him more famous and make Him look even better if I face difficulties well. It's a great passage of Scripture, John chapter 9. You can turn there. I know I shared this a few months ago. We were going through the I Am series. I want to share it again because it's a passage of Scripture I come back to pretty often because it reminds me of the glory of God. See, it's not about you. Like, the story of God is not about you. It's never been about you. It will never be about you. It's not about me. It's never been about me. It will never be about me. It's all about God. It's always been all about God. It will always be all about God. He is the hero of this storybook right here. This true story, the narrative of people in the Bible, He's the hero, not us. And everything we face is for His glory. John chapter 9 is a story of a boy who is blinded from birth. John chapter 9 verse 1 says, as he went along, talking about Jesus, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents? The Jewish people believed that the only reason you would ever be sick is because of some sin in your life, or something you did wrong. So they're asking, hey, this boy was blind. Why? Is it because of his own sin or because of his parents did something for him? And Jesus says, neither. Now, you guys are missing a point. He's not sick because of his own sin. He's not sick because someone else sinned. He's not sick because the devil attacked him. Neither this man nor his parents sinned. This isn't the cause of some bad thing in his life. Jesus says this, this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. The reason why this boy was born blind and was allowed to live blind for certain years of his life was so that God could do something in his life. Which means if he hadn't been born blind, what Jesus is about to do couldn't have happened. As long as it is day, we must do the work of Him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work, while I am in the world, and I am the light of the world. Jesus is saying, this guy was born blind, not because he did something wrong or his family did something wrong. It's because I've got a plan for him. I'm writing a story for him, and I'm doing something great in his life. And as long as I'm on planet Earth, and as long as you are following me, you need to do what we ask you to do, what I ask you to do. You need to do what the Father's asking you to do. And I think sometimes we want to do what we want to do. We want what we want rather than what we want, rather than wanting what God wants. Eventually, Jesus heals this boy, and He makes it very clear that the reason why this is done is so that the glory of God, the power of God should be shown. And so some people, I actually heard preachers say things like, so God allows you to be sick just so that He can heal him? That's schizophrenic God. There's a famous preacher, I won't say a name, who I heard say once, that's a schizophrenic version of God. And I got so angry. I got angry at this preacher because he's wrong. This is exactly what Jesus is saying in John chapter 9. Jesus is saying in John chapter 9, the reason why I allowed this difficulty to come His way is for one singular purpose. So that I can intervene and rescue him from it. And you will know that I'm the one true God. In fact, the reason why this boy is born blind is not even for his own sake, but it's for your sake that is watching this. It's for you, Peter and my disciples. You're following me, and I want to build your faith. It's not even about this boy. So I allowed him to suffer pain all these years so that this very moment could happen. So that I could heal him in front of you, and your faith could be built. Wow. God will allow other people to face difficulty and pain for my good and for His glory to be shown in my life? Yep. And God will allow you to experience pain and obstacles so that you can be a part of the story that He's writing in the lives of other people. The Christmas season exposes how selfish I can be and reminds me how often I make it about myself. And Jesus is saying, no. Christmas is not about you, Kenny. It's not your birthday. It's my birthday. It's not about what you can get. It's about what I can get through you. And what I can get through you is a story written in the lives of other people, of their rescue and their redemption. Oh, God's done great things in my life, but He doesn't want to stop there. He wants to do great things in the lives of other people that I correspond with. And if I'm selfish and I'm focused on myself, I become an obstacle between God writing a story in their lives through me. God will write the story through someone else. But if I choose to allow God to work through me, and I choose to make it about Him, God says, I'm going to write a story, Kenny, in their lives. I'm going to do it through you. Oftentimes, that's going to involve some obstacles or some pain, some real difficulty. But if you're willing to experience that, you're willing to endure that, oh, you haven't seen what I can do through you if you're willing to do that. A couple other verses I want to share with you. Ephesians chapter 1, 11 and 12 says this. In Him we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of Him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of His will. So God is saying, I've chosen you, I've predestined you, I work everything in your life according to my plan. I do great things for you. Verse 12 explains why God does this. In order that we might be for the praise of His glory. Why does God do great things in our lives? Why does God allow us to experience pain? Why does God do anything in our lives? For one very clear purpose. So that we might bring Him glory. So that we might make Him famous. So that we might make Him smile. So we might endure everything in such a way that makes Him proud of us. So that we might endure and face things and live our lives in such a Christ-honoring way that other people will say, wow, there must be a God in that person's life. Wow. Romans 11:36 says this, now from Him and through Him and to Him are all things. To Him be the glory. Romans 11:36. From Him, through Him, to Him are all things. To Him be the glory. God is consumed with His own glory. Not because He's some selfish, arrogant dude in the sky. No. Because He is the most awesome thing there ever been. He's the most awesome being. And God is consumed with the most awesome thing, which just happens to be Himself. And so when I'm consumed with God, I'm being consumed with the most awesome thing. If I'm consumed with myself, I'm consumed with something that's secondary and less than. God calls us to be consumed with the most awesome being that's ever been. It just happens to be that He is the most awesome being that's ever been. He's not being selfish. He's saying, hey, I am the most awesome thing there is. I would call you to be focused on the most awesome thing that's ever been. God. And God created you for that purpose. And as you live your life focused on making God famous and making God smile and making Him look good to the lives of people around you, when it becomes about Him and not about yourself, you find yourself becoming far more satisfied. John Piper, one of my favorite pastors in America, often says this, God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in Him. We were created to be satisfied in Him. And when we're satisfied and content in Him, then He's glorified in our lives. And if you're focused on His glory, and it's all about Him, that changes the way you spend your money, changes the way you spend your time, it changes the way you approach suffering, it changes whether or not you get mad when you don't get what you want, it changes whether or not you get mad when bad things happen in your life, it changes the way you focus on other people, it makes you less selfish, it makes you want to serve others, It causes you to work hard even when you're unappreciated by the people around you. If you are focused on the glory of God above yourself, it changes the way you view God. And there's a direct correlation between your understanding of the glory of God and how much you love God, how much you look like Jesus, how much you hate your own sin. If you look at someone who doesn't love God a whole lot and doesn't love people and doesn't hate sin, it's someone that probably doesn't understand the glory of God. But if you become consumed with the glory of God, making Him famous, making it about Him in every way possible, and making it about people knowing who He is, you find yourself loving Him a lot more. You find yourself loving people a lot more. You find yourself hating your sin a lot more. You find yourself wanting to be more like Jesus. It's a natural byproduct of being consumed with His glory. I'm going to pray. Joel's going to come and give us some announcements. But I just want to encourage you, as you approach Christmas season, to remember that it's not your birthday. It's His birthday. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about Him. And it's so often in the Christmas season we get focused on ourselves, and we even get focused on other people above God. And it's all about God. It's all about Jesus. It's not my birthday. It's not your birthday. We're not celebrating each other. We're celebrating Him. It's all about Him. As you do Christmas festivities, as you go to a parade, as you give gifts, those things are good. I'm not saying disengage from them. I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm saying do those things, but as you do it, remember that you do it because it's all about Him. It's never been about us. It's never been about us. It never will be about us. It's all about God. It's always been all about God. It will always be all about God. So Jesus, I pray You would help us to remember that. Remind us that it's not about us. Remind us that the Christmas season is about the fact that You chose to rescue us. And may we remember that, and as we go through the Christmas season, God, would You give us the courage and the emotional strength and the fortitude to remember, to choose to remember that You truly are the reason for the season. Give us the courage to remember that it's all about You and not about us. And as we live through this season, may we remember that it's not my birthday, it's Your birthday. And may that affect the way we chase after You this Christmas season and beyond. Amen.